Hey guys. So, last night episode of Elementary was called Poison Pen, which big clue as to what happened in this episode. So this episode had different little, I wouldn't say twists, but like layers to it, especially the investigation, which somehow got entwined with Sherlock's life, like when he was younger. So, there was this woman, no, shouldn't say that. Okay, back to the beginning. Beginning of the episode, the scene opens up and Sherlock and Watson, they're at a gym and he's punching. He's having a fight with another boxer, and Watson just sitting on the sidelines like she looks bored actually, but you can tell she was working out at some point. And he tells her, like this, it would be good to start fighting with, or learn how to fight, so that you'll be able to defend yourself against people who are bigger than you or whatever. And so it's kind of funny because the end of the episode, the very end, the last scene is of Sherlock. He's back there again, shirtless, and he's by himself in the gym, punching a punching bag. But before that, there's a lot of things that happen in this episode, especially for Sherlock. So the case ends up being, well, case poison, obviously. It's of this CEO of this company, and they find him. Well, Sherlock, he gets a call while they're at the gym from a dominatrix who is not, since we know last season, Irene Moriarty. It's not the same person. This dominatrix. Well, he called her mistress on the phone. I was like, what? What's happening? And so he like, when he got off the phone with her, he's like, call 911 and tell them you found a body. So when they arrive to the scene, Detective Bell and Gregson are there, and there's this woman. Yeah, you can tell she's into some stuff, some S&M and stuff. She has a full like bodysuit on, and it's all leather, and wow, it's insane. And so after she tells what she came to see, which was a man in like this really like, I don't know how to explain those suits. It's like one of those it's like a full body suit. He like, that's where they found him, and he had like blue like a blue pigment on his mouth. And she was called there to like, there's this whole like wordplay with it. Like there's anagrams that mean certain things, and that Sherlock, like she told Gregson and Bill, but then Sherlock had to translate it, and they were like, how do you know the mistress or whatever? And he's like, he basically tells him that he and her like communicated about the different ways to torture someone, like with weapons and stuff, because she has a book. And I thought that was hilarious. And so that's the only time we see her, is at the beginning of the episode. But I thought that was amazing that Sherlock, well, it's not a big surprise because last season he had conned some prostitutes that one episode, which was funny. So yeah, after that, so the guy, he's a CEO obviously, and he's, of course, they have to ask who was his enemies and who has a motive for murder, of course. And so they didn't know, because Watson was the one who pointed out the man was poisoned because of the blue pigment that was on his mouth. She was like, it's from nitroglycerin. And so Sherlock went around the room looking to see if he could find any of the poison anywhere. And he went, and there's a glass of bourbon sitting like on the table. And when he like, Gregson was like, you need to, he's like, my team is gonna need to look at that. He's like, don't worry, there'll be enough. Like, he poured some of it on like the table, and then he grabbed like an incense and what might I imagine, but it looked like an incense, and he lit it, and then he put it onto the the bourbon, which she suspected was laced with the nitroglycerin. So when he's like, fire in the hole, and then it like lit up. It was blue, and he's like, yeah, that has nitroglycerin. You can have a triple check, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And so throughout the investigation, we find out that Sherlock had a past with one of the suspects. He was the nanny for the sons of the CEO. The CEO has not a stepwife. Wow, I cannot think right now. I'm freezing. But his wife, his second wife, his first wife died of cancer, and his wife ended up investigating the nanny, like, without even anyone knowing about it really, and found out that this woman was she went on trial for murder of her own father using the same poison a couple years ago. I think it was like 5 years ago or something like that. I don't remember. Not 5 years ago. I think Sherlock's at 22, because it was like, because the reason why he knows her, because he used a fake name and he wrote letters to her, and they wrote letters to each other, and he just wanted to like get inside her head, like to see if she really was guilty, because she was acquitted in the end of the trial, because she was abused by her father, and she was sexually abused by her father, and everyone thought she was guilty, but she was acquitted, obviously, so she never got justice for doing that. And the whole thing throughout this episode, like, he reveals that he was her friend, her correspondent, who he wrote to when he was 15, because when he was younger, when he was sent to boarding school, he was bullied like violently by his peers, because they couldn't stand him. And so his way of coping was to reach out to someone who also been abused by someone else, which was Abigail. That was her real name. Like, she changed her name after the trial, so that she could start a new life. And I forgot I think it was Anne. Yeah, her name was Anne. That's how she introduced herself to Sherlock and Watson when they went to the house to talk to the family, because she came to check on the boys, because she was worried about them when she heard about the murder, because she didn't know. She was, and then that's when Sherlock, he saw on her wrist she has a phoenix tattooed. Not really her wrist, it's more like right here. And he remembered that from because Watson, when they a little bit later, Watson was like, how do you know about the phoenix tattoo or whatever? How did you know that would be how that was her? I was like, she was like, can't talk. He was like, because I talked to her when she was on trial years ago, and she mentioned the phoenix tattoo, wanted to get a phoenix tattoo. And so basically Sherlock, he lets Watson into his life when he was younger, about the bullying, and how he was just trying to cope with that without having to, do anything drastic, because he wasn't as self-assured as he was then. He was very lonely, and he needed someone to talk to get him through the pain. And that's what Abigail started for him, besides the fact that he just messaged her because he started talking to her because he wanted to get into the side of criminal. And she ended up along the way, he ended up finding out that Abigail did indeed murder her father, but he never told her about it, or never told anyone at all, because he had promised that he would not tell anything that was said between them, because she didn't outright tell him that she murdered her father, but there were little moments where she would give like a little like insight to things that were left out of the trial, and he put the pieces together basically. And as a result, Abigail came his first murder, and that in a way, she was the one who made him realize that what he wanted to do was do what he does now. He deduces people and is able to find out if they're lying, or if who's the murderer or whatever. So that's kind of strong. And so when he finally revealed himself to Abigail, 'cause she was locked up in her apartment because the wife had fired her, and the police were investigating her because they really did think she did it, because it was the same poison that she used on her father, allegedly. And so, but it turns out someone found out about that information, and that was, the wife, because the wife had a PI trailing Abigail. And Abigail, because only she knew someone was trailing her, even for a little bit, was she kept seeing that she would go on like a walk or something, and she would see this brown sedan, and she finally jotted down the license plate. And so she gave it to Sherlock, and Sherlock had them search it, and it turned out to be a PI who was hired by the wife to find information on Abigail, because she thought, because see, here comes the twist. This is when the wife was planning on killing her husband for basically the insurance money. I guess not really insurance money. He just has a lot of, in his will, he has certain slumps of money he's going to give away. He's giving some to his sons in trust to be able to use when they turn 18. And then the wife was getting a really small sum. But if she found out that he was having an affair with anyone, her lump would double, or it would increase more. And so basically, the wife wasn't the one who killed her, but she had an alibi. She had one alibi that said she was at that other house with the sons while they were watching TV in their rooms. But excuse me. But then she had to backtrack and say that wasn't true either. She had another alibi where she was out with this doctor who gave her illegal, prescription drugs illegally, because it's not prescribed to her, right? And so Sherlock, he found that out, and he's like, so basically she was planning to murder in the way that her husband was murdered ultimately. And so that took her off the list, but at the same time she was charged for attempted murder. And then what happened after that? I know there's another part I'm missing. Let's see. So then after that, so the sons their aunt starts living with them to take care of them while this is all going on, because then so what really knocks everything out of the park is when okay, wait, before I talk about how the case ultimately gets through. So Sherlock, after he reveals himself to Abigail, because he goes over to the house, right, to her house, he just wants to talk to her, and he's like, because first she won't even open the door. She was like, this is Sherlock. He's like, this is Sherlock Holmes. I met you the other day. He's like, if you don't have a warrant, I don't want to talk to you. Then she's like, you might remember me. I used to know you a couple years ago, by the name of Sean Holmes. That was the fake name he used. And so she opened the door and let him in, and she was like, what are you doing? Why are you telling me this, or whatever? And she wants to know why he hid. Why didn't he just tell the police that he knew her in that way? And he's like, because I don't believe you did it. I don't believe you killed the CEO Titus. And so that became a whole thing, and he was gonna leave after they talked for a little bit, and she was like, I don't have any friends, and you reveal yourself to me, and now you're just gonna go. And so I felt really sad for her in that moment, because I felt like there was something between them in some way all those years ago when he was 15 years old and he was writing to her. And so this part becomes a big thing about Sherlock, because he was gonna leave, but he saw how affected she was and how much she needed a friend, and so he stayed there with her. And so he comes home. He goes back to the brownstone with Watson. Watson's asking him about Abigail, because she knows there's something she knows that there's something about the relationship that she hasn't seen with Sherlock before, and that's when she makes a deduction saying that he used to love her, and Sherlock basically shoots it down. He's like, no, I don't think I'm capable of anything mundane as love, and it kind of becomes this thing. Like, we know that he had some sort of attachment to her so long ago, and then because he said to Abigail, he's like, because she said, I looked forward to your letters, and I'm sorry for not writing anymore. She's the one who basically stopped the correspondence because she left that life behind. And Sherlock's like, I too look forward to your letters. Like, it was kind of some kind of this strange, out of this strange, horrific situation, there was like a friendship or something. And so, basically, in the end, it comes down to this. They find out that the son, Graham, the oldest son, was the one who committed the murder, because so Watson and Bell went to find the tablet, because apparently, I think it was like a week or something ago, because they went to visit the son after the memorial service, and they were like trying to talk to him to make sure he wasn't the one who did it, or if he was, they wanted to see. And so they were like talking to him, and he said something about Abigail and his father having issues, because they were arguing, and he got it on tape on his phone, because he was actually talking to his little brother, because his brother was showing him this move or something. And so he showed him the stuff, and it looked like it would be motive for her, because they were arguing over a tablet that hadn't been found yet. So Watson and Bell are in the CO's office in the house, and they're looking, and they find, because Watson realized there are 5 vents in the room, which is abnormal for most places. In most places, there's only 2 vents, one for clean air, one to filter it out. And so she starts tapping on the walls where the filters are, or where the vents are, and she tries to see. She finds one hollow part, and she's like, this is supposed to look like a vent, but it's really not. So she has Belle open it up, and they find the missing tablet in there. And on the tablet is videos of the father sexually abusing the son, and that was a very strong motive that made Sherlock and them realize that it was the son who had who poisoned his father after getting tired of being hurt, especially when he thought that his father was going to go after his little brother, and he didn't want that. He didn't want that at all. What sibling wants their younger sibling to be harmed by someone who's supposed to love you? And so that's basically what it was. And so they got all these lawyers, the lawyers and the aunt. They like brought them into the station. They were talking, and the aunt didn't even know about what had happened. She had no clue that her brother was the one who had been hurting her nephew. And so in the end, Abigail actually ended up coming in, because the son was like, I don't want to talk about this with either of you. So he made his aunt and the lawyer to go away so that he could talk to Sherlock and Gregson about it. And then Gregson, not Gregson, and so he pretty much confessed. Well, he didn't confess, but he started crying, because he basically was like, I couldn't do it anymore. And he's like, because Sherlock kind of guilted him. He started to guilt him and was like, I know Abigail cares about you, and I know how much you love her, and I know how much you care about her. And Sherlock's he's basically telling him, you don't want her to take the fall for this, because she might have done something in the past that she wasn't, but she is not guilty of this. Do not make her go to jail for this. And so when Abigail is outside, because outside Watson, I think it's Watson, and I want to say it's, yeah, I think it's Detective Bell and Watson. I want to say they were outside with the with the aunt and the lawyer. And so Abigail comes up because she's like, I just got this call from the school for the younger boy, saying something about how Graham was taken away. And then they end up telling her about what Titus did. And she, because Sherlock ended up early in the episode when they were talking, like another time, he had told her that he knew that she was guilty, but he never told her that he knew that she was guilty, even though she was acquitted. He just wanted to talk to her, right? And so when he did, she was upset. She was like, go away, because she didn't even talk to him about it because he lied to her for so long. And I guess in a way she felt like, what kind of friend was he for keeping that from her? If he knew the truth, why did he keep talking to her when he didn't have to? He could just, reveal that to whoever. But that it didn't matter anymore because you can't do double jeopardy. And so then when she found out about what Titus did and why and what happened with Graham, she confessed to the murder so that the son wouldn't have to go to jail, and he didn't. So she ended up confessing and making it seem as if she did it. And Sherlock was the one to interrogate her, and he was like, "You're innocent." She's like, "You and I both know I'm not innocent." And she was talking about the murder of her father because she, like Graham, was tired of being sexually abused. And I'm kind of actually happy they touched base on this, even though it's not something like they didn't handle it well. Because not that the show didn't handle it. The people personally didn't handle it well. They went and did murder for each. And so what happens in the end is she ends up going to jail because she confessed, right? And so the boy gets off. And when Sherlock is interrogating her, he's like, you don't have to do this. At the least he'll get 18 months. She laughs because she's crying, and she's like, 18 months, that's how long me and you were talking. And I thought that was really sad. I was like, oh. And so he ends up taking the fall for the kid, because she's like, he has a whole life ahead of him, and I'm finally getting justice for something that I did. And it was like really a bittersweet moment for Sherlock, because he knew the truth, and he knew that it didn't work out the way he wished it to. So he ends up getting Graham, the son, to come talk to him, like on the way to school. The guy, he meets him at this like by the harbor or something, because they're by a bridge in the sea, and they're talking, and Sherlock's like, he's like, he basically tells him that he doesn't have to like be alone anymore. If he wants to talk about any of the things that happened to him with his father, even though it's over and done with, he might still struggle with that emotionally. And he basically tells him, you have a friend in me, basically. And he gave him his card, and he's like, if you ever want to talk, you can always pull me out of whatever and we can talk. Which I thought it was nice, because Sherlock didn't really have that when he was younger, and he was given the opportunity to some fellow kid who did experience it by someone who supposedly loved him. And so yeah, that was the episode, and it was a really good episode. I really liked it. I always like when we find a new reason to connect with Sherlock, because he's supposed to be this know-it-all person who you can tell has scars, but we never know what it is. But now that when we do, it's extraordinary to know his story and know how much it has probably affected him as he's grown up and become this newer, better person, especially with his recovery and all that. So yeah, that was a good episode. I actually liked it. I was just happy it wasn't like one of those cliche kind of things. You know how, see, the nanny did it or the wife did, but it was neither. It was the son. And sometimes I guess it's because of my love of detective stories so much, that I had a feeling the whole time that it was gonna play out somehow that way. Sometimes I hope it's gonna be an outside job, like someone who's not even connected to the family, but usually it ends up not being that way. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.